Everybody. Welcome to the MIT Mobility Forum. This is episode 154. We'll focus on the AV deployment in cities. I'm Jinhua Zhao, professor of city and transportation at MIT. Welcome to join the session. Today, I'm really excited to have Professor Kara Kockleman and Robin Chase joining us. I think both Kara and Robin are frequent guests and speakers to this forum. Kara is a professor at UT Austin. At the moment, visiting MIT as MIT Mobility Initiative Senior Fellow. Robin Chase, the founder of Zipcar, and just really started the whole sharing economy movement. So I wouldn't do more people are familiar with Kara and Robin very well. So today we'll do the following. First, the three of us each will give about 8 minutes presentation on our view about the AV deployment in general, covering many interesting ideas. They are not exactly structured in a very systematic way, just want to prompt many discussions from the audience, right? Then around 12:30 also, we'll start to really engage the audience. This time, we want to do so more than typical forum. I know this audience has always been active, contribute a lot of ideas, but this one, we like you to not only ask questions, but contribute substantive ideas about AV deployment in cities. Let me give you some structure for that, right? There could be ideas related to anything about spatial arrangement, right? Parking, curb management, zoning. There could be anything to do with pricing, the fares, the subsidies, the integration with transit fares. The third bucket is AV relationship with any other mode, bicycles, walking, transit, taxis. And last one is on AV and the labor and the local economic development, right? So we'll prompt you with each of the category for everyone to contribute ideas. Also, while Kara, Robin, and myself are presenting, feel free to connect your observations. Like I went to this city, I saw that, right? You can put this into the chat as ideas as well. So before I start, I'd like to ask people to type into the chat. Another question is, have you tried an autonomous vehicle before? In which city and by which company? Right? Just type which city and which company have you tried this. I would try bus shuttle in Zhengzhou, China. Phoenix, Waymo, from San Francisco, Waymo, probably that's a large concept. Zoox in San Francisco. Oslo, Norway, autonomous bus. Interesting. Waymo in Redwood, Tesla in Boston, Detroit in the TU conference. Interesting. Okay, yeah, thanks. So there's a variety of, there's a major player, but there are a lot of actually other operations and services all around the world. Yeah, thank you. So I will start the talk first. I'll go for about 8 minutes. Buon, please help me enter the time, remind me the time, right? So the first part to mention is the automation. When we say that, it actually have very distinct layers. Automation applied to public transit, automation applied to fleet-based shared services, and automation applied to private-owned cars, right? Kara, Robin, we may cover different portion of that. But for me, I just say that different countries and cities are taking distinct pathways on this. For example, this summer I was in Singapore. Singapore set up this national steering committee. We had the first meeting in July. The first decision made in this committee is actually automation applied to public transit as the first priority, right? So very clear from Singapore. In U.S. context, as what the reality stands, more likely the first part we're talking about the fleet-based shared services. This, right? Now, of course, we're going to talk about the private ownership as well. The first thing I would say is how to measure the right thing. This is a graph our researcher, Dr. Awad Abelhani, produced for this. This is in San Francisco, top of the growth of Waymo. It increased from below 100,000 trips to 700 trips within a year, like a tenfold increase on this. But more importantly, to look at, this is the passenger onboard miles, and the red part is the empty miles, and this is en route pick up miles. This is the critical aspect about the vehicle occupancy. That's the foundation for the discussion of the efficiency, that, right? So for that, I like to suggest this metric, that is the passenger mile to vehicle mile ratio. If you consider total passenger mile, if you have shared the two, if you bus it to 20, it's a contribution to society. And the total vehicle mile, whether it's deadheading with people or not, this is the total cost to society. If you took this P2V ratio, that's a metric to measure the overall efficiency, right? So we hope that all AV service providers, Uber, buses, trains should all provide this ratio and have a fair comparison. For that, in terms of PVR, can AV be better than each of those current services? Be better than private ownership, Uber, dial ride, suburban buses, urban buses, or subways? And for specific location and time, that would be a good metric to check. Does it make sense for AV to play a positive role here? Also to discuss, we can calculate this such ratio today, but also if Waymo were to 10 times the operation, let's say, they're moving mostly from the downtown core to a more suburban, lower density operation, would such a ratio decrease or increase? Can it maintain a good, efficient operation? So point number one. Point number two, what's the difference between Waymo and Uber? Waymo, where you can only incentivize behavior through pricing, through information, but in Waymo, you can dictate behavior, right? So if we have the 100% of control, what can we do? So the first thing we, in transportation profession, we've been discussing this dynamic bus lane for a while, but we just couldn't enforce it, right? But with AV, potentially we can have a meaningful dynamic bus lanes. Yeah, the lane used by bus, when bus is a big gap, you can insert the AV operation in it. AWOL actually did a case study for that in San Francisco. Second one is the precise pickup and drop-off location management. Next one, dynamic parking. Again, they've been discussed for a long time, but we can only implement to a very limited degree. With AV, can we introduce a really serious, smart dynamic pricing? Next one to mention is we introduce many of the speed limit, like for example, particularly in this highway system. But as we know, what causes accident at one speed, but the other important one is the speed variation. So with AV, is it possible for us to regulate speed variation in addition to speed limit? That's another possibility that is never enforceable, implementable today, but with new technology, can we imagine that? Last one is AV as a traffic controller, right? Treating AV either as a moving traffic light or AV as a policeman to regulate the overall traffic if we have a fleet-based AV. The fifth point to mention is with AV potential, we don't need congestion pricing. We can have a direct routing as a control. So for example, we can route to reduce congestion, route to reduce CO2 emission, route to reduce crashes, or route to maximize profit. That's many companies will obviously doing that. For that, I just mentioned that this technology opens all sorts of possibility in terms of the urban mobility management and operation. The third point I want to mention is the relation between AV and human agency. What do I mean by that? If you look at the different level of decision making, all of us have to conduct. For example, at the low level, accelerate, decelerate, and changing lanes. For most of us, the point of having AV is to forego those decisions. So I don't care about acceleration, deceleration on this, right? That's level one. But mid-level, what if we talk about route decision or about departure time decision? Do we feel still comfortable saying, oh, let the AV just make decision, or I want to have some say in this process? For that, I can see the variation. Different people may have a different judgment on this, right? Next level, what if, let's give you a scenario. Suppose I take an AV going to a restaurant, but the AV said, oh, Jinhua, I heard recently you want to be healthy. Let me route you to a vegan restaurant, right? So if AV start to make this destination choice decision, this ownership choice decision, is this where the human decision, fully human versus the human machine decision, or a variety of midpoint that we have discussed, right? This is not the trolley problem I'm talking about. This is actually many of the practical daily decisions that we have encountered. So this is what I call this agency frontier where human preference and machine intelligence meet. The second aspect is when we talk about this decision, under what scenario are we talking about? The normal operation, during a mega event, during accident, emergency at a small scale, emergency at a large scale. For each one of them, should the consumer make the decision? Should the fleet operator make the decision? Car maker make the decision, or authority make the decision? That's another important command matrix where the right actor in charge at each scenario. The fourth point to mention is the moving to the policy realm. I wrote a LinkedIn article about states write the law while cities bear the consequence, right? Today is really a deja vu of the disruption of like the Uber and San Francisco battle 10 years ago. But we can see that Waymo behave much friendly today, right? But still, the fundamental conflict is very similar. There are two compelling yet conflicting principles. From the city's argument that it has to be city managers, we cannot have each company negotiating with 200 different cities individually. So it'd be streamlined, scalable, and uniform policy framework. While on the city side, saying context matters, and the consequences are local. When we talk about the livability, congestion, public transit ridership, local enforcement, they're all at the local level. So how city can meaningfully participate in this AV policy discussion, another important aspect, the equity discussion here as well. So because of this fear of preemption in many cities, it creates a cycle in action. This is really a self-fulfilling trap. Many cities saying, oh, what can I do if the state is going to preempt me? There's no point for me to take action. So this is really a very negative cycle in from this inaction. So here, there are three different postures city can take in terms of AV development. One is city as a regulator. That's the typical way to think about it. But also city as an enabler, because the AV operator need the access to curbs, need to put the AV in some depot development, need the support of a great system. So in these cases, city are providing important factor that support the AV operation. The last one is the AV as a co-system designer, because city often have the local knowledge, understand the local mobility system. For city and AV company to work together to design the system is another aspect that city can take. Last one,
Jinhua, your time is up.
Oh, good. So I'll stop here. Great, thanks. Kara, please.
Trying to respond to some of the chats. So I got an email from Jinhua, I think yesterday, maybe the day before, about the 6 different items we should try to cover. And I don't have slides. Robin has those for you, but I wanted to just give you my quick thoughts on those. So AVs offering distinct solutions for mobility problems. We have a paper about vulnerable populations across the Dallas-Fort Worth region and how to help people, what kind of accessibility or welfare benefits that these things would bring if deployed at the typical scales, maybe 1 for every 200 people in the population, rising over time as people get used to the system and hopefully shed vehicles. But we also have papers about first mile, last mile to transit stations, and not just train stations, but bus stops versus door to door. And, the incentives can be put into that. And then also just taking over for current transit systems with stop to stop, which is sort of like a pickup and drop off situation. You can always have PUDO points regardless of how these vehicles are used, because you want to kind of help pooling and avoid chaos at the curb, and especially in the downtowns or airports. We do a lot of dynamic ride sharing, which is real-time ride pooling, and we're also doing a lot of safety investigation right now. So we're really pleased with how Waymo's doing. So yeah, I'll try to point people to some of that in the chat box later. But in terms of the heaven or hell that Robin came up with years ago, my concerns, or many people's concerns, tend to be on the congestion and the greater energy use. So electrification is nice, but not if these things are riding relatively empty or relatively large. They're not right sized. Freeing up parking lots is great, but you could have chaos at the curb. So we have papers about that, having these vehicles not idle on the street and not just cruise around, which I think is what's happening in Austin, where I normally am. You see vehicles all the time. It's amazing. It feels like in some locations in Austin, there are more Waymos than privately owned vehicles. But I think our fleet is still under 300 vehicles in Austin right now. And, they serve about 30 to 40 rides a day, each of them. The long distance travel impacts are kind of interesting, right? So we could see our rural routes much more used as people shift from the air travel mode on the shorter, under 500 mile distance trips. And you may see more domestic travel. So people, instead of going to Europe, head to Canada, Mexico, or Las Vegas, let's say, and potentially overnight. And in that case, you really want to have reservations in these shared fleets, and buses, autonomous buses, maybe with attendants on board, right? That's a very expensive asset. Same thing with the trucks. On another question he asked is the human agency, and he talked about ownership and I guess ride pooling choices, but the destination, the vehicle type, the departure time, those will be impacted by what you're offered and how well things are mapped. I think, for example, the robotaxi, or sorry, the full self-driving app version of the Teslas do really well in some city settings, maybe where they have more experience, like the Austin region, but not so well, I've heard, in Boston. I think it went through 2 red lights with Jinhua. I think Elaine and Kornhauser in the Princeton, New Jersey area is having really good experience with his FSD. But yeah, I do know people that go through red lights, especially at higher speeds. I guess the car doesn't believe that it's red, or that doesn't want to jerk its occupant around. So that's pretty unsafe. But yeah, different settings, may perform better or worse, especially under, bad rainfall and other kinds of weather events. Let's see, what else? Introducing challenging policies. I think I'll let Robin and Jinhua give you thoughts on this, but I do think that the time is ripe to try to move the needle on a lot of things that we have been ignoring, including enforcement of speed limits and this kind of thing. So the Waymo does obey the speed limits, which are set, kind of low, reflecting the fact that we expect people under good travel conditions. So, dry pavement, broad daylight, and uncongested, to be going somewhat over the speed limit. And I think my students' investigation of the INRIX data across Texas is finding, close to 50% of people are above the posted speed limits at most times a day when they do get to choose their speeds. And the Tesla's going about 20%. I think the Tesla constraint kicks in at about 20% over that speed limit. But I really can't believe that the fleets don't have governors on them and haven't had those, forever. So yeah, it's bizarre the way we have laws and we do not enforce them. So this might be an opportunity for that. And then finally, the cities bearing the consequences. There's so many things that we don't have control over, like the gas tax, although as voters, we potentially should at the state and federal level, and some states have raised the gas tax, but it's still far below what I would love to see. And same thing with registration fees. All these things would help, impact that choice to share and to, moderate those distances and the vehicle sizes. But I do highly recommend a 20% cap on all empty VMT by the fleet owners and a 0% empty VMT by any privately owned vehicle. As you can imagine, if I'm in a meeting and my vehicle's driving around and gets hit, I can't go save it. And so maybe I'll let, Tesla manage it. But most people are unlikely to do that, to let somebody else sell the use of their vehicle while they're, in a meeting, but maybe while they're away for a month, they could. And then finally, integrating AVs with public transit. I have a lot of papers coming on that, thanks to Kentaro Mori, who's in the chat box with us today, as well as Yantao Huang, and also autonomous buses, that kind of thing for long distance travel. With reservations. If you're going a long distance, you probably want to have a guaranteed seat and all that, and are happy to make a reservation. So I think there's a lot of opportunities coming. Robin.
Great, thank you so much, Kara. Yeah. Next is Robin, but Robin prepare a question for the audience before Robin gives the talk. She asks, in 1 or 2 words, tell us reasons you use your cell phone camera. I'll give a few, maybe 20 seconds to think.
I'm hoping you're thinking, why in heck is she asking this question, which Kara nicely asked me. I have to say that as I have aged, I now use it as a magnifier. So I take a screen cap and then I open it up.
Right. You can use it as a telescope as well. Yeah, not a binocular almost, right? Not a telescope, but you can zoom in quite a bit with the modern phone. Yeah.
John or Bhuvan, how is that going? Because I'd like to see the results of that before I share my screen.
100 people answered. Maybe let's give 5 more seconds. There's about 112 people. Okay, let's close it and share the result. Oh, 124 people answered the question. Let's see.
Okay.
Bhuvan, do you want to stop the poll and share the result? Yeah, please. Their result. Oh yeah, there's a cloud coming out. Yep.
I don't there.
Can you zoom in more?
So as you look at these, let's just keep this and I'll talk to it. Kara mentioned this, and in my heaven and hell back and forth is hell is we learn all these ways to use these vehicles. And I wanted you to compare how often you would take a photograph when you had to have a camera and go take it someplace and get it developed and whatever, the number of photos you took then versus the number of photos you take now. And the use cases are so wildly unimaginable beforehand. Like, we didn't even cross our mind when we first got cameras on our cell phones. I thought to myself, that's nice, but like whatever. And now it's an integral part of what I do. And that's how I want you to think about what will happen if we have personal AVs and the marginal cost is close to zero. So let me just share my slides. One of the things I replace who else is sharing. It's great. One of the things I did that was really effective to me was that one day when I was going to meet someone, I said, okay, from the moment I wake up today, I'm going to imagine if I owned an AV, my own personal AV, what would happen? And so I had a husband and I had children and I was going to meetings and work. And so I challenge you to do that and to think about my example with new use cases that you thought. So I went back because I was so shocked. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm saying aloud here. So the first time I wrote this Heaven and Hell back in 2014, and the reason I wrote it back then is because that was when the horizon for autonomous vehicles was being predicted within the next 5 years. Everyone was saying, oh, between now and 2017, we're going to have, X% of cars. And I'd say Tesla, GM, Toyota, Hyundai, they all had these predictions in 2017, 2018, 2019 that they're going to have them. So let me talk here. Back in the day when I was doing Zipcar, and we were the first people to put an hourly price in the car, and everyone had a heart attack because they thought it was so expensive. It was because people only thought about the marginal cost of driving. So what did you think the cost of driving was? Gas, parking, and tolls. And typically that was just gas, because sometimes you could park for free, or a lot of time you'd park for free, and you had tolls. And so that is how we were conceptualizing, and that is how we kind of drive our own car, as we think about gas, parking, and tolls. But I want to add into that marginal cost driver's time, that we don't even, when we thought about that marginal cost, our existence in that car was a given. If we have these personal electric AVs, and I'm happy to see in these last decade that the likelihood they're going to be electric is, praise the Lord, pretty clear they will be. But it will feel like free, because the research shows this between 33 and 10 cents a mile, 5 and 16 cents a kilometer, which means that if I'm living in a city and these vehicles are going 20 miles on average or 15 miles on an average an hour, it's going to cost me, it's basically nothing. It is an irrelevant cost to me if my body is not in it. And so what I like a lot about shared AVs, something like Waymo, is that much like when you use a Zipcar versus your own car, you are now having to think about that with the depreciation, insurance, and maintenance, and all of that in. And if I put my even more progressive transportation hat on, we still aren't including all the social costs of pollution and congestion. But I just want to paint that hell version so you really understand, if you own your own car And we just are living in the status quo regulations that we are today, which is pretty much how Waymo is operating, is very close to status quo costs. We will be seeing them everywhere all the time. So do your own tests and check it out. So the rise, I'm not saying all the things I want to think. I'm going to one path about AVs that have been raised by both of my predecessors here, talked about all the things that I care about and think about. But the rise of electric EVs is giving us this opportunity to address dominant policy and infrastructure failings that have been driven by the idea that we're doing everything in transportation to make personal car ownership the preferred and easiest, simplest way to go. And now we have this opportunity to rethink it. And so if we rethink ownership, well, then we can transform the costs of me having to own my own car at $9,000 a year and between 14 and 50% of my income. And we have to have all those parking spaces everywhere for me to park my own car. So that's a really enticing promise of the heaven side. We can rethink road congestion because we would be using, if we shared as Kara laid out and as ITF is laid out, if we need one fraction of those cars, if people actually do shed cars, that's a fantastic thing. Curb congestion, vehicle weight and footprint, we can get at these types of rules. What are policies going to put in place? Occupancy is key, and it's kind of interesting. We should talk about that when we get to the chat. Like, how do you measure occupancy? And is that an invasion of privacy? Kara suggested one that I thought was kind of interesting, that your own personal car you should never have running empty. People will push back on that, I'm sure. But I had been thinking that we would just be charging cars, assuming that they're 1.2 passenger occupancy, which is the average. And if you have more occupants, you'll want to declare so you can reduce your taxes. And we can rethink regulation in general. Jinhua's comparison of when Uber and Lyft entered the market and it was this big drama and chaos, what happened was the states protected their existing transportation, taxi services and limo services, where they might have redefined the whole thing. What does it mean to be a taxi? And they could have refreshed all of those rules. So it's just an opportunity for us to do this. But I want to push this towards some utopic thinking, because when I talk to policymakers, I like to say, here's where the outside edge is. And Kara's talking very specifically, like what's politically possible. I want to talk about what is rational and should happen, and we can move back, can move in from there. But why are we? We've been regulating based in these silos, and the silos of vehicle type, and they've been so disturbing. When I did Zipcar, there were no card shares. Were we like a car rental or not? Is Uber and Lyft like a taxi or not? Are the little one-wheel things or scooters in my state of Massachusetts? An e-bike was considered a motorcycle, and so it couldn't be parked in a bike shed. In Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, e-scooters were considered those little kick scooters, like toys. So what are they called? How are they being regulated? And we really need to be focusing on safety and speed and weight. I'll address this in a minute. Efficient use of assets, market failures, and government incentives. Those are reasons to regulate. And now we are regulating in this whole defined area. What is your vehicle called? What type is it? I feel like, let me just go back. So this a friend made, and he called it the periodic table of vehicles. If you think, to orient you to this, up high are light vehicles, down low are heavy vehicles, to the left are slow vehicles, and to the right are fast vehicles. What do we want to encourage? We want to encourage light and slow traffic. We want to have people pay for heavy and fast ones, because that's what ruins the road, cause the most car crashes, et cetera, et cetera. So if we, instead of saying, are you called a bus, are you called a bike, are you called a taxi, we said, how much does your vehicle weigh? What speed are you going? What's your maximum speed of the speed governor? Then we could stop having to slot all this, and we could also be talking about occupancy, or this is a way to right size and to put AVs in terms of congestion. It's a way to rethink more rationally. So my utopic user fee dream would be, when you go buy your vehicle, and I want you to think from roller skates up to a public bus, you will know its per mile and distance user fee based on its weight, its footprint, its emission types, and that you'll know that under congested circumstances, you have this thing added. And then I want to say, hey, you know what? because you're a human, I'm giving you 1 square meter and 100 kilos for free, which means bikes will be free. And when you walk, you would be for free. But you'd be telling people everyone's paying for what they should be paying. No one's accepted. You know, whether you're an ICE or a Prius or a Hummer or whatever. And it would turn out that buses, when they were full, would not be paying hardly any taxes because they would be getting all this benefit of having it so right-sized. So anyway, that's my utopia dream. And now I want to talk about some heaven pieces because I feel like we don't talk enough about heaven. If we manage to do this, we can recover the human right to free movement, which I think we don't even realize we have lost, as in we don't have to have a driver's license, we don't have to be 18, we don't have to have a lot of money. My mother and my across-the-street neighbor used to walk like 7 blocks in the city to go to the libraries when they were 6. This is Inman Square in Cambridge that has just had a big renovation, so we've all loved these old photos. Here it was in my photo taken yesterday, that we can now make it safe for pedestrians and cyclists and other people to ride through it. And what would that mean if we did that? We could make more family-friendly streets, and that's my brand new dog that's giving me joy. But you can see that we have strollers, and we have lots of cargo bikes with children in it, and we have me with my dog with that helmet in it. We can, when we take away that parking, we can repurpose and provide play streets more of the time. We can really transform our cities when we allocate less of this right-of-way to personal cars. And it would completely, if we think about shared AVs and all the promise of AVs, that I can have this dynamic thing that's not, doesn't need 1 per household or 2 per household, that we can just reduce those numbers, it completely transforms what I would choose to buy. Right now, people choose to buy the largest possible car they can because it's got to fit all of their needs. If I can do those needs conveniently, simply with an autonomous AV and pay per trip, that means I can be right-sizing and having these smaller vehicles, which we know 70% of trips are 1 person at a time and less than 5 miles, less than 5 kilometers, 3 miles. Then I can start right-sizing my trips. So all of this can create a virtual cycle, and we can start building infrastructure that was for light vehicles, light, slow vehicles. We could introduce speed governors, but we have these opportunities to really change what we have built today and get rid of all those negative externalities. And that was how it's going to end. Lots to talk about.
Thank you so much, Robin and Karen. So what I do is I will spend about 5 minutes or so for the audience to take some minutes, reflect on what we heard, and really contribute your idea into the chat, right? So I'll put the possible idea solution in several buckets, so have some rough structure here. The category 1 I put is everything related to AV deployment in the spatial aspect, right? So here, so category 1, I will put spatial. That means lanes, parking, curbs, zoning. That's one category's idea we'd like to hear from you. Either you experience something in certain city that seems a good idea, good experience, bring that to, or just a what if scenario. So if this type of spatial arrangement or intervention could happen, that will be beneficial, right? So the category 1, please feel free to add your thought to that. And then I will put the second category here as well. Yeah, let me give you maybe 10, 20 seconds. John, we'll add you to the spotlight here so you can help organize the questions, prompt to the panel so we can respond to, right? Okay, so that's the first one on the spatial related. The second one is everything pricing related, right? Could be congestion pricing, road user fees, subsidies to certain services, integration with, say, public transit fares, mass in general. So anything to do with pricing as an instrument to influence the AV deployment as well. So that's the second aspect. Also give about 20 seconds. Oh.
Wow, these are so impressive and wonderful to look at. Jinhua, I feel like these are, we're all going to have to go look at the at this published chat later because there's so many. How can we
We'll
pull
summarize
out?
and share with all of you, and then we can digest that more carefully. Yeah. For now, which is on the fly, whichever trigger your thought, it can later respond to. So so first category is spatial related. Second category is the pricing related. The third one, I would say, any interaction with other mode. Could be pedestrian, bicycle, public transit, scooters, any other human-driven cars. So in that aspect, any suggestions or solutions? John Bua, hopefully you can on the fly summarize some of that post to the panel. It's not an easy job. So many different common thoughts there. Okay, the fourth category is related to two aspects. One is on labor, and the other one is on local economy, right? Local economy could be directly related to AV as an industry, or AV as an enabler to certain economy, yes, or like a street commerce, that type of economic activity as well. Then I'll give 10 seconds before I move to the next one.
Let me just, while people are doing that, let me think of.
Yeah, so I'll finish. The last one
go.
is related to AV governance, right? Is the current transportation governance structure good enough, or this is a possibility to trigger some institutional changes in terms of the urban mobility governments, right? So that's the 5. Also 6, of course, any other topic that's not in this any of these 5 categories. Yes. All right. Bo and John, maybe I'll give 20 seconds more for people to type the thoughts, and then we can start the Q&A session. I'll let you guys prompt the question for the panel.
Hey, Jinhua, will there be a grad student in your class summarizing all of this information for us?
Yes, there will be. This forum is actually a formal class at MIT called Frontier of Transportation Innovation Research. And each class, we have all the students writing a reflection of today's discussion. And the chat will be part of the assignment there. Okay, John, whenever you feel ready.
Okay. Well, as you all can see, there's a lot to process in the chat. So why don't we start with the category number 1, which is the spatial characteristics. So there were some questions raised about mobility hubs and around the use of street space, which, Robin focused on. So I think maybe just as a first round, if we could just get some maybe further reactions from Jinhua, Kara, and Robin on those concepts. So let's start with mobility hubs.
Robin, do you want?
I might mention at the very beginning of this chat room, which many people probably missed, one of our attendees, whose name I'm looking for right now, had written a proposal to the Irish government about trying to get people to maybe release their cars and buy into these all-you-can-eat sort of shared services options, and depending on the level or the number of options you wanted to access before you begin paying a 50-cent per mile, let's say, fee. It just seemed like a really nice idea. It doesn't really take care of the curb congestion, but I think it really shifts the tone quickly. And so if you can just incentivize that, I know our transit agencies are sending kind of largely empty, big vehicles around all the time. And there's really much more efficient ways, I think, to do it that are much more demand responsive. And I would love to see us shift that budget and easily just kind of subcontract this work out the way the Singapore government often does to the private market as much as possible. And they're already out there serving these trips. They're cannibalizing them. I really think, we could ensure that they share by offering just small subsidies and bigger subsidies to the people who really need it. But that little incentive alone could have a big impact. And then you could get, Robin, your all electric, right-sized vehicles. You may have average vehicle occupancy minima to continue to qualify to be in this program if you're Lyft or Uber or Waymo or Zoox. And I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this curb challenge, and it's been really interesting to me. When we look for parallels, if you think about the explosion in delivery, that is really introducing to us what it looks like to have good movement that used to have a person driving downtown, and now it's a package that's coming to them, and the pressure on the curb. When we founded NUMO, the New Urban Mobility Alliance, its purpose was to look at AVs. And one of the things we had been thinking about is also for Uber and Lyft, the PUDO piece. So there should be standards that, at mid-block, there's always a pull-out spot where you can, sit idle for 4 minutes and something. But these standard spaces, so I don't have to negotiate with every single dynamic time I do a dynamic ride, where do they want me to meet? What's that corner? That we just had these standard points. There's something Kara said that I wanted to address, and now so ITF, the International Transport Forum, did do a study for Lisbon where they had really good trip data, and they found that if you had 6-person vehicles, I'm forgetting the numbers now, you could take off like 80% of the cars, and it would all be done with these 6-person vans. I love the idea of that, and something that Jinhua had mentioned was I'm constantly thinking how if we could only get prices better than, and we always know this is the issue, if we could only get prices more correct than me going by myself in my 120 square foot car versus me having a seat, I would choose rationally. Sometimes I want my whole car, or sometimes I'm only wanting to pay a seat. And the last piece to respond to Kara that she happened to mention, which was the all-you-can-eat bundles, when we were always talking about mass, I am very leery of all-you-can-eat bundles that ever include whole car ownership. Because if you have the choice, whole car use, if you have the choice of a whole car use anytime, and I pay for it for the month, that will never work out. You have to say you get 3 whole car uses in a month or something, but big cars can never fit into an all-you-can-eat monthly anything, because even if you even have 1 or 2 trips, I'll think, oh, I've got my 1 or 2 trips. I haven't used it today. I'm going to go use it now. Like, you just always use up to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure the Irish proposal had that. It was more like a transit system that was, running however was most efficient at that time as they retire, some of the older stock vehicles and try to shift the services.
On the special side, I would add one more thing is many cities in the US feels like we do not have authority over any operation. We don't have power, right? So not much stick, but there are several characters you can offer. The street is a local street managed by the city. That's a very important aspect that both the operator and the cities need to collaborate on. So that's an important carrot through this curb management. The other part I mentioned is the bus lane potential, right? Allow dynamic bus lane if you follow certain conditions and offer support to the city or mobility management, you can use the bus lane. That's another carrot potential. Back to you, John.
Okay, and by the way, for the 3 of you, you're seeing the chat as well. If there's something particularly compelling in each of these 4 categories, please do jump in. So let's move on to the pricing one. And here I might turn to Alan Kornhauser, who's with us. And he asked, what about the mobility vehicles owned by society instead of personal ownership? So the city would utilize these assets more efficiently based on latent demand. And Alan, I don't know if we can spotlight you, but maybe you can jump in
Yeah,
directly with your
let me
question.
spotlight Alan. Yeah, Alan, go ahead.
I'm just an attendee here. I'm learning and learning a lot and learning.
Alan, we may need you to put your thoughts into the chat box because we can't hear you.
I'm having my students put the thoughts in because I can't type well enough to put the thoughts in. I don't know how to spell, and you'll know that I don't know how to spell, and then I'll be embarrassed, and so therefore. But first of all, Jinhua, I really appreciate what you're doing here. I think this is an excellent discussion. Okay, I mean, without so.
Thank you, Alan.
Let me make sure I say that. Of course, I'm trying to be heavily involved in this because I did unmute myself, didn't I? I don't know what it's saying here, but and I think many of you know where I'm ending up on this thing is I'm ending up that this is just an enormous opportunity for society to provide mobility, safe, of course, okay, that doesn't kill the environment, of course, but that really, I guess, levels the playing field of mobility. Because, you know, I'm sitting here, my wife and I have 4 cars. I walk to work. Her work is 2.5 miles away. I mean, I don't know why we have 4 cars, but we just have, so what? We happen to be able to afford it, unfortunately. And what I'm struggling most with is the number of people that I find aren't in the same affordability level that I am. And for them, it is really unfortunate. And that's where I get to this whole latent demand business of there are people that unfortunately could improve, to have their lives vastly improved if they could only get from A to B at time T when they want to go from where they are to where they want to go. And once you start looking under that one, and you find them, you say to yourself, oh my goodness, this thing is like perfect because it's a machine. We send it nowhere earlier than go to, and it just does it. And of course, we want to load it up with people when we can load it up with people and there are. And maybe we have to say, hey, maybe we can't do it just departure time T, it's time T plus some range, maybe 5 minutes, maybe whatever. But as I look at existing demand, because I don't know how to do latent demand because I can't see it, but the existing demand, you know, from some places to some places, even if you wait 24 hours, only one person wants to go from there to there. I mean, that's the really challenging part of transportation, which is, I think, what has inspired me my whole life is its diffusivity in space and in time. They're just in this 3-dimensional space, time, whatever, they're just filaments. And then if you look at mass transit, it just offers a few filaments that you could hop on. What this thing does is allows you to fill that 3-dimensional space with filaments of opportunities and not to take advantage of them and say, oh, I just want to go by myself, but I don't mind going with them. Okay. And in fact, that might even help the whole design of the city. So I don't know. You asked the question, John. I tried to answer. Price. Price is going to zero. The price of me making a call, I call my wife in the house on this. You know, when I was growing up, I mean, I didn't have the money to put in the thing to do that. And with utilization of an asset that is now distributed over the society, the utilization of that asset, the car sitting there idle in my driveway, they might be utilized 5 or 6 hours a day. That's a 10x, 15x on what they're utilized today. And one other comment that I'd like to make from the beginning. Empty vehicle miles, okay? I just wish the FHWA no longer said that the average vehicle occupancy is 1.7 in cars. It's not. It may not even be 1. It may be less than 1 across the USA 24 hours. I know in Princeton, in the morning, on a school day, the average vehicle occupancy in Princeton is less than 1. People are going from home to school with a kid and then coming home. For just that piece, the average vehicle occupancy is 0.5, because occupancy should be measured on what is the value proposition of the trip, not who's the machine that's controlling it, okay? And we're counting the machine that's controlling it when we get the number 1.7 or whatever FHWA puts out. And I wish, I hope, I would love somebody to tell me if you take away, the chauffeuring, the chauffeur. I'm taking someone to hockey practice. Take the chauffeur out, take the repositioning that's done to get the car back to whatever, the heck out of there, and see what it is for the car, so that we can at least do the comparison of what we might be talking about in empty vehicle miles.
Alan.
Sorry. Bye.
Alan, I never knew that you were on the same page. The values of trips, because not only are you have the chauffeuring.
I hope I am. I mean, come on.
But you think the piece I want to add to that, it's very hard to put a value on trips, because while intellectually I like the idea, but when we talk to people who, I'm cruising to see cute guys, I wanted to go take a leaf peeping trip because whatever, I went to go buy 1 clove of garlic because I ran out and I came back. How does that, weigh against the empty vehicle that's going 1.5 miles to go pick up Robin and take her and her entire family to the airport? So I think it's a very tricky thing. But Carrie, you had mentioned something, and Jinhua, that I was really kind of intrigued with, was if we think about the implementation of these vehicles that's owned by the municipality or owned by the private sector, I was realizing that we have really learned in the RFPs that were put out for shared bikes and shared scooters, the failures and needs of overstocking, because we have this idea, there's network effects. And so we want to make sure that there's a big enough network. And so that would be, I'd like to think that we do learn from that, and that we don't say, oh, there's 12 companies who want to put on N number of vehicles each, and that would be nightmarish. So I was just reflecting we could be doing some learning.
Right. One thing about Adam's idea of this society-owned car there, right? So there are several occasions that clearly make sense. One is the area where private company will never go into, right? Unless you have direct heavy subsidies, right? One type. The second type, we worked with TfL Transport for London many years ago. Just a very brief discussion. When TfL regulates, say, autonomous vehicle services, they could say, take a laissez-faire approach, you do it. They could take a tendering approach like they did with bus service, or they could in-house operate some AV division. So there's occasion where TfL, let's say, have an in-house AV division, not necessarily big, but so that you can learn enough about its operation, the cost structure, so that when you negotiate with the private sectors, you have enough information to have a meaningful negotiation. So that's a learning exercise. That's another function it may take. Yeah, a current.
So just to go back to the pricing point that Alan just mentioned, there was a question early on by Mark Amblard, which I think this is when we were showing the San Francisco data, the Waymo data. And the question was, to what extent can dead miles be minimized with incentives/penalties? Should cities charge operators for the cost of these externalities? And Ikara, you had mentioned this kind of goal of a 20% cap for fleet operators of autonomous vehicles, deadhead, 20% maximum empty miles, I believe that's what you said, and 0% for privately owned. So I guess, open question, further reflections on that comment, and maybe starting with you, Kara, do you want to articulate why 20%, and wouldn't, maybe just a quick build on question, wouldn't it be in the incentive of Waymo and the other operators to naturally try to minimize empty miles?
Well, I think, the vehicle itself, the asset itself, and all of the background administrative and bureaucratic burden of, especially transit systems, very, very high. So yeah, that marginal cost of running your vehicle another mile is quite small. And you can see this with your own vehicles, John, right? Like buying gas, or maybe replacing tires a little bit earlier, or getting another oil change if you're still driving an ICE, which I hope you're not done. But yeah, I think that is a big expense. And so when we simulate shared autonomous vehicle fleets of any reasonable size, so not like a 10 vehicle fleet or maybe a 100 vehicle fleet, but bigger fleets over small geofences and big geofences, we keep seeing about 20% to 30% empty driving. But when we allow the ride sharing option, which might come with like a 40% cost savings for the passenger, but there's going to be a time penalty, right? Because many times they will be more circuitous trips and waiting for somebody else to get in the vehicle with them. We see negative VMT growth, assuming that those 2 people or those 5 people, whoever is in the system, would have driven to their destination with their travel party, whatever size that is. And so it's effectively staying under 20% should not be hard. And I think, as soon as Waymo and hopefully, and Zoox is naturally a shared service, but I think it's on a predefined circuit right now, whereas Waymo can go door to door. As soon as they start incentivizing that ride pooling, then I think they can easily get down from the 50% or so that they're currently operating at.
On that,
Robin,
With the number of
quick
cars.
reactions, or I'll turn it over to Robin and then Jinhua to wrap up.
Sure. Oh, Robin seems to have frozen there.
And oh my, you didn't get at all to my question.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe,
sorry, Robin, we can't hear you.
Right. So maybe I just, given the time, I would just add a remark and reflect. I think to this deadheading mile, etc., right? We could debate it should be a physical quantity control or should be just a flexible pricing control, right? The different ways you can handle this question as well. So given the time, let's conclude this. First of all, let me announce next week we'll continue the discussion. We'll have let me just here, Titty Chan from San Francisco, Stephanie Dock from DC, and Rachel from Austin. 3 distinct cities in United States represent different kind of governing structure of the mobility and particularly on AV to join us continue discussion of the AV adoption. So we'll see that next week. And all the audience, please join me thank Professor Kara Kockleman and Robin Chase for today's presentation and conversation today.